And I've auditioned for a lot and haven't got a lot. And then Gran Torino came around where he was talking to me. It was like this little role.
For decades, Clint Eastwood has been the epitome of the strong, silent American icon. A legend of the silver screen, a director of immense talent, and a man whose very presence defines a certain kind of rugged individualism. His face is practically carved into the Mount Rushmore of Hollywood, a symbol of unshakable strength. But behind this legendary persona is a complex and once hidden family story that has slowly come to light. It's a story that repaints the picture of his relationship with his son, Scott Eastwood, a story that starts not with fame and fortune, but with a secret birth and a father who was, for a time, a ghost. This isn't just a tale of a famous dad and his aspiring son. It's a look into a relationship forged in secrecy, tested by Hollywood's harsh realities, and ultimately built on a foundation of tough old-school values. Imagine being the son of one of the most famous men on the planet. But for years, your very existence is a closely guarded secret. Imagine your father's name being conspicuously absent from the public record of your birth. This was the reality for Scott Eastwood. For years, he lived in the shadow of a cinematic giant who, in the eyes of the world, hadn't publicly claimed him. Today, we're peeling back the layers of this intensely private family drama, exploring the years of silence, the struggle for identity, and the truth behind Clint Eastwood's controversial approach to fatherhood. What could lead a man to keep his own son a secret, and how did they find their way from that painful beginning to the public bond they share today? The answers are more complex and compelling than you might imagine. The story begins not in the glitz of Hollywood, but in the quiet, sun-drenched landscapes of Hawaii. Scott Eastwood was born Scott Clinton Reeves on March 21, 1986, in Carmel, California. His mother, Jocelyn Reeves, was a flight attendant. Their relationship with Clint Eastwood was, to put it mildly, complicated and kept entirely under wraps. In the mid-1980s, Clint was a global superstar, but his personal life was a tangled web. He was in a long-term, high-profile relationship with actress Sandra Locke, and his affair with Jocelyn was kept completely out of the public eye. It was a romance that existed in the margins, far from the prying lenses of the paparazzi. Jocelyn gave birth to two of Clint's children during this time, Scott in 1986 and his sister, Catherine, in 1988. Yet for years, their existence wasn't publicly acknowledged. Tabloid reports and biographies have claimed that for both children, the space for the father's name on their birth certificates was marked "Father Declined." While that specific detail remains a tabloid fixture, the fact is their paternity was a secret, a formal documentation of their father's public absence at the moment of their arrival. Following the end of her relationship with Clint around 1990, Jocelyn Reeves made a life-altering decision. She moved with her two young children to Hawaii, creating a world for them thousands of miles and a universe away from their father's life. Scott grew up largely unaware of the incredible fame attached to the man who was his biological father. He was raised by a single mother who, by all accounts, was determined to give her children a stable and loving home. Scott has often spoken about this period with respect for his mother's strength and has acknowledged the financial struggles they faced, recounting how he worked odd jobs, like bartending, to help make ends meet. This was not the privileged upbringing one might expect for the son of a Hollywood mogul. His early memories of Clint are fleeting. He recalls visiting his father on movie sets, brief encounters that felt like stepping into another dimension. He spoke of seeing this larger-than-life hero and feeling a sense of awe, even riding in a helicopter piloted by his father. But these were just snapshots, glimpses into a world he wasn't yet part of. For most of his childhood, Clint Eastwood was more of a concept than a constant presence. The bond between them was a seed planted in secret, and it would take years of struggle and discipline before it would finally break through into the sunlight. Life in Hawaii came to an end during Scott's teenage years. In a candid joint interview with Esquire, Scott explained with a laugh, "I lived with my mom in Hawaii until I pissed her off, and then I came to live with my dad and pissed him off." This move to California marked a pivotal turning point. It was the beginning of Scott's real immersion into his father's world, and it was an education in the Eastwood School of Hard Knocks. Clint Eastwood's parenting style is, by his son's own admission, old school. It's a philosophy shaped by the Great Depression, a time that valued grit, resilience, and personal responsibility. Scott learned quickly there would be no handouts. He told Men's Health in 2017, "My dad never gave me a cent. He made me work for everything." Clint made Scott pay his own way through college, a period Scott admits left him frustrated with his father's refusal to help financially. The lessons weren't just about money. They were about character. The rules were simple. Be on time. Work hard. Tell the truth. But the most infamous story, one that perfectly captures the intensity of Clint's discipline, involves Scott's younger sister, Catherine. Scott, then 16, took his 14-year-old sister to a party. At some point, he left without her, a mistake he'd only make once. When Clint found out, his reaction was swift and physical. As Scott tells it, his father confronted him, furious, and punched him in the face. The message was delivered with force. "You don't ever leave your sister at a party, ever." Reflecting on it years later, Scott described it as very old school of him, noting his father wasn't afraid to enforce his principles in a way modern parenting might find shocking. This tough love approach extended to Scott's dream of becoming an actor. Clint didn't discourage it, but he certainly didn't pave the way. When Scott started auditioning, he used his mother's surname, Reeves, to avoid the whiff of nepotism. In fact, his father insisted on it. Clint made it clear that if Scott was going to act, he was going to earn it. Scott auditioned for many of his father's films, including American Sniper, and was often rejected. Clint wasn't going to cast his son just for the sake of it. Scott had to be the best person for the job. Period. This period was a grind. Scott found himself driving between San Diego and LA for auditions, studying lines after long bartending, shifts, all while trying to measure up to his father's impossibly long shadow. He was struggling and often angry at the man who could have made it all easy, but refused. Yet looking back, Scott gets it. Clint wasn't just raising a son. He was forging a man. It was a brutal education, but it was one that would ultimately prepare Scott for the realities of Hollywood and lay the groundwork for a relationship built not on privilege, but on hard-earned, mutual respect. Before Scott Eastwood became a recognizable name, he was Scott Reeves, a struggling actor determined to make it on his own. The decision to use his mother's surname was a conscious strategy to distance himself from his father's massive legacy. He didn't want the Eastwood name opening doors he hadn't earned the right to walk through. This was a personal mission, heavily influenced by his father's insistence on self-reliance. The grind was relentless. While other celebrity kids might have been networking at exclusive parties, Scott was working as a bartender, construction worker, and valet to support himself. He described the grueling routine, working all night, studying lines until the early morning, then driving for hours to auditions, only to turn around and do it all again. He was living the life of 1,000 other aspiring actors filled with rejection and financial uncertainty, a world away from the Hollywood royalty he technically was. His auditions for his father's films were a recurring theme. He tried out for roles in Flags of Our Fathers and American Sniper and was rejected each time. Clint, the director, treated Scott, the actor, like anyone else. There was no favoritism. The message was clear. The Eastwood name might get you in the door, but it wouldn't get you the part. Scott's early filmography is a testament to this hustle. He landed a minor part in his father's 2006 film, Flags of Our Fathers. and had an uncredited blink-and-you'll-miss-it role in Gran Torino in 2008. It was around this time, after building a foundation of work on his own, that he began to professionally use the Eastwood name. The decision wasn't about cashing in. It was about finally acknowledging his heritage after proving to himself and his father that he was serious about the craft. He continued to plug away, taking roles in horror films like Texas Chainsaw 3D and other projects. He was learning the business from the ground up, experiencing the feast or famine nature of acting his father had warned him about. When Scott was weighing a role in the Suicide Squad franchise, he sought his father's counsel. Clint's response was simple. If it feels like they really need you and if it's a good part, then do it. If not, then don't. It was a lesson in trusting his gut and knowing his worth, a principle that had guided Clint's own career for decades. This period of struggle was formative. It instilled in Scott a work ethic that has become his calling card. He learned not to expect anything and to be grateful for every opportunity. Looking back, Scott is thankful for his father's tough love approach. He admitted that there were many times he was angry with Clint, knowing a single phone call could have changed everything. But he now sees that the greatest lesson his father taught him was how to stand on his own 2 feet. Clint Eastwood didn't give his son a career. He gave him something far more valuable, the tools to build one himself. For years, the relationship between Clint and Scott Eastwood was defined by distance and discipline. But as Scott relentlessly chipped away at his career, a significant shift began. The turning point wasn't one big moment, but a gradual evolution, fittingly forged on the very ground they both considered sacred, the movie set. The move from a tough-love father-son dynamic to one of professional collaborators represents the climax of their complicated story. The first major sign of this thaw came with Clint's 2009 film, Invictus. Clint cast Scott in a supporting role as Joel Stransky, the South African rugby player whose drop goal wins the World Cup. While not a huge part, it was meaningful, a public acknowledgement of Scott's talent and hard work. Working together on films like Invictus and later Trouble with the Curve provided a new context for their relationship. Scott saw his father not just as a dad, but as a master craftsman at work, witnessing firsthand the quiet authority and respect Clint commanded. Scott has said that watching his father work was like film school, a chance to learn from one of the industry's most enduring talents. This shared professional experience became the bridge that connected their 2 worlds. They now had a common language, a shared passion that went beyond the complexities of their family history. Their public appearances and joint interviews truly showcased their evolving bond. In a memorable 2016 interview with Esquire, they sat down together for the first time, giving the world a rare look at their dynamic. The conversation was filled with easy banter and mutual respect. Clint spoke of his pride in Scott, not just for his success, but for how he'd handled the pressures of his lineage, acknowledging that Scott's mother, Jaslyn Reeves, did a remarkable job raising him. For his part, Scott spoke about his father with deep admiration, eager to soak up his wisdom. He called his dad a vault of stories and a hero. There was a palpable sense of a son eager to learn from his idol. This period was about more than just professional collaboration. It was about personal connection. It was about Clint seeing his son as a man in his own right, and about Scott finally understanding the philosophy behind his father's tough approach, recognizing it not as rejection, but as a profound, if unconventional, expression of love. The distance that once defined their relationship had been replaced by a shared path. In recent years, the relationship between Clint and Scott Eastwood has settled into a comfortable, deeply rooted dynamic of mutual respect and quiet admiration. The struggles of the past have given way to a strong public bond that showcases a family united by more than just a famous name. This new relationship is built on a foundation of shared values, professional respect, and an inherited resilience. Scott, now a seasoned actor with roles in franchises like Fast and Furious and action films like Alarum, often speaks about his father with a reverence that goes beyond typical family duty. He sees Clint not just as his dad, but as a living legend and a constant source of inspiration. In interviews, he often expresses a sense of urgency to soak up his father's knowledge and stories, acutely aware of the passage of time. This sentiment reveals a deep love and a desire to connect with the entirety of his father's incredible life. This appreciation is reciprocated. Clint, a man famously economical with words, has expressed his pride in Scott's accomplishments. Their dynamic has evolved into one of mentor and mentee, with Scott often seeking his father's straightforward guidance on career decisions. The core of their bond is a shared philosophy of toughness and perseverance. When asked about the source of his family's resilience, Scott's answer is simple, connecting it directly to his father's upbringing during the Great Depression. There's no room for complaining. You just keep moving forward. Even in his 90s, Clint Eastwood embodies this spirit, remaining active and still working on new film projects, defying any suggestion of retirement. This relentless drive is clearly a source of immense pride for Scott. The current chapter of their relationship is one of profound connection. The once secret son is now a keeper of the family legacy and a testament to the enduring power of their shared bloodline. The path from a childhood shrouded in secrecy to a son who speaks with such love and authority about his father is a remarkable journey of reconciliation. While Scott Eastwood's story is tied to his iconic father, he has also cultivated a distinct identity marked by its own triumphs and tragedies. To understand Scott is to look beyond the Eastwood name and see a man shaped by his unique upbringing and his own personal losses. One of the most profound events of Scott's adult life was a devastating tragedy he kept private for years. In a 2016 interview, he revealed that a former girlfriend, 26-year-old model Jewel Brangman, was killed in a car accident in 2014. The circumstances were horrific. It was a fender bender and there was a recall on airbags, he explained. Her airbag exploded. It shot a projectile through her body. It split her spine. Scott's grief was complicated by a sense of unresolved communication. He confessed he never called her father to offer condolences at the time, though he did reach out later. The loss had a lasting impact. Maybe it's made it harder for me to date, he admitted. This revelation offered a rare window into the vulnerability of a man often seen through the lens of his father's tough guy persona. Professionally, Scott continues to build a diverse career. He has starred in the action thriller Alarum and has been attached to an adaptation of Colleen Hoover's popular novel Regretting You. He has also expressed a desire to move behind the camera, following in his father's directorial footsteps. He recognizes that for an actor, it can be feast or famine, and that creating your own material is where the real power lies. Ultimately, Scott Eastwood emerges as a man of contrasts. He is the product of Hollywood royalty who had to fight for every opportunity. He is a public figure who guards his private life. He carries the weight of a legendary name, but has worked tirelessly to forge his own path. He inherited his father's old-school work ethic, but he has also been shaped by his own unique experiences of loss and love. The journey from being the unacknowledged son in Hawaii to a respected actor in his own right has resulted in a man who is grounded, hard-working, and authentically himself, the ultimate tribute to the tough love that shaped him. The relationship between Clint and Scott Eastwood is a powerful story of unconventional parenting and ultimate redemption. Clint's old-school methods were undoubtedly harsh, from the financial independence he demanded to the infamous punch. But they also seem to have forged a man of character who earned his success. So, what do you think about Clint's tough love approach? Was it a necessary discipline that ultimately benefited his son? Or was it unnecessarily cruel? Let us know. Your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this story fascinating, make sure to like and subscribe for more stories from Hollywood and beyond. The story of Clint and Scott Eastwood is far more than just another chapter about a Hollywood dynasty. It's a raw and complicated story of secrecy, struggle, and hard-won reconciliation. It begins with the painful reality of a childhood spent in the shadow of a global icon raised in Hawaii, thousands of miles from the world his father dominated. Scott's journey from that hidden past is a testament to a quiet resilience. Forced to forge his own identity, he embraced the Eastwood Code, not because it was given to him, but because it was demanded of him. Through bartending shifts, endless auditions, and the constant pressure of an impossible legacy, he painstakingly built a career on his own terms. He endured his father's rejections and his strict rules, all part of a brutal but effective education in self-reliance. Their reconciliation, forged on a film set, speaks volumes about who these men are. Their shared passion for cinema became the bridge that spanned the distance between them, transforming a relationship of tough love into a partnership of mutual respect. Today, we see a bond that is deep and authentic. We see a son who looks at his father with profound admiration, and a father who can look at his son with pride, knowing the man before him wasn't given success, but earned it. The journey from a secret beginning to a strong father-son bond is a powerful redemption story. It challenges our notions of family and fame, leaving us with a final thought. In a world that so often rewards privilege, is the greatest gift a father can give his son not a leg up, but the strength to climb on his own?